This video is about the EcoFlow smart home panel. And this is one of the products that I purchased last year. And I think it's by far one of the best investments I've made, at least in the last 3 to 5 years. And what happens is that this panel allows you to connect your Delta Pros directly into it. And then what it does is that it takes 10 circuits from your original home panel and allows you power them. So let's click into this real quick. So in my smart home panel here, once you click into this, you can see in the center, it tells you how much you've used for the day. In my situation, and when it says how much you've used, how much energy you've used for the day, it's measuring everything that is connected to those 10 circuits. Now, your house could be using a lot more. For example, in my house, I have everything connected except the stove, the electric stove in the kitchen, and the AC/heater, because that's one HVAC unit. But everything else is connected. So I woke up very early this morning. If you look at the time at the top left, it's 4 a.m. Once I click on this, I can show you the dryer is connected, and you can see the 10 circuits. Right now, if you count them, there are 9. But if you look at number 1 and 2, the dryer at the top, that is the 240 volt setup. That allows you to combine number 1 and number 2 that are on opposite phases of your panel, and it makes a 240. So number 3 is my son's room. Number 4 are my other boys' rooms. And we can see the washer is number 5. The master bedroom and the iron is number 6. Number 7, I have multiple things because these are the lights that are outside of the house. Also the lights in the garage door. And also, for some reason, the way my system was set up, in the kitchen, there's only one circuit out there that uses, or one outlet that uses the toaster. It's actually the toaster and the blender connected. So that is number 7. At number 8, we have the kitchen, which has the microwave and the lights in the kitchen. Number 9 is the living room and the patio. And then number 10 has the fridge and the coffee maker. So the fridge has its own outlet, and then the next outlet next to it is like the coffee maker and also, I believe, the air fryer. All right, so this is the smart home panel. Let's go back. And if you click at the top, at the left right there, you can see it's going to give you a breakdown of the usage. So it's saying this is the home. If you click on the next bar, it's showing the battery, and it's saying that right now, the EcoFlow batteries are putting out 179 watts. Well, 188, it's fluctuating. And from the start of today, I've used power discharge 0.2. Power charge is 0. So I believe this power charge, it just indicates what is coming in either from the wall or from the AC outlet or from the smart home panel or from solar. But I could be wrong. I need to clarify that part. And then finally, the next tab is also the grid. So it's showing me that today I have used 0.33 kilowatts from the grid, and then the battery I've used 0.20 because I just turned it on not too long ago. Going back at the bottom here, you can see I have 2 Delta Pros. One of the Delta Pros, which is Delta Pro 1 on the left, is not connected to an extra battery. So here you can see I'm down to 36%. This is giving me an output of 99. Now, what is important to know is that this 99 or 100, because I'm operating in a 240 volt split phase system, everything on the left of this panel, which is 3, 5, 7, and 9, are supplied by the Delta Pro on the left, and then half of my dryer, so circuit 1. On the other side, Delta Pro 2 here, which is down to 12%, this has an input of 94, but there's no solar right now. It's 4 o'clock, so where's that coming from? Well, if you look right below the Pro portion there, I have an extra battery, an EcoFlow battery connected to it. So that is where the input is coming. So the battery is supplying, it's going into the main unit, and then that's coming out as the output at 144. If we go back a little bit, these are all my products. I have my EcoFlow River. That's usually always connected to my PlayStation next to the TV. But like I was saying about the battery too, so we can see, the extra battery connected to the Delta Pro 2 is putting out 87 watts. Now these systems, the way I operate them is usually they're not connected to, I don't recharge them from the grid. In the morning, I have solar panels that are currently linked to them, and once the sun comes out, they start recharging. Unfortunately, yesterday there was no sun, or there was little sun, so these batteries didn't charge as much as they should have. But what happens is around 9 o'clock, when the sun is out, it hits the panels. By around 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, all batteries are about 100%, and we're just going through that pass-through charging phase. So let's go back to the smart home panel, which is the whole point about this. Now, the other thing you can do with the smart home panel is automation. So if you click at the top right, it shows you the automations I currently have. So right now, I have this starting January 21st, which is yesterday, going all the way to January 2025. You can only set it, I think, at most about 2 years in advance. Okay. You can choose the option to do it daily, as we can see here. You can do it weekly, and you can pick the days you want. And then finally, you can do it monthly. I never do monthly, I do weekly. Initially, when I first had only 2 Delta Pros, what I would do is I would say Monday, Thursday, Saturday. And what happens is that on Monday, the batteries are 100%. By the end of the day at midnight, the batteries are maybe 40% or whatever. And then on Tuesday, they don't come on. That allows the solar to charge them up completely. And at that point in time, my solar input was pretty low. So now that I have increased the amount of solar panels I can have these running daily, and I can have them running 10 hours, 20 hours, just as long as I want. And then I can pick the panels that I want. So right now, let's select all. And if we turn it on, and we go back in here, you can see each of these outlets that are being powered are green. So you can see the numbers are green. If we go back and we turn it off, now it's off. And those panels, those circuits should still showing green. There's usually a delay for a few seconds. So let's go back. It's off. So let's go back. So if you look at the right there with a little electricity bar, it's now showing 0.18 is coming from the grid. If you come down to where the batteries are, it's saying 00 kilowatt. That lets me know now that the house is getting 0.18 kilowatts, but it's coming from the grid, not the battery. So let's click on this again, and you can see all those numbers are now white. Let's go back. We can see that the batteries is giving 0. If we turn on the automation, because remember, the time is 1 to 11 at night. So all we have to do is just turn on the button right there. Gives it a second. And right now we can see at the top left, it's still getting from power from the grid. But in a second, it's going to switch. Now in my system, there's a little bit of a delay here, but now you can see it's switched. It's 00, and now 0.18 is coming from the batteries. And each of those circuits are now green. So if you look at the EcoFlow battery, 99 output from one and 143 from the other. I think the final thing I'd just like to note in here is the smart home panel 240 volts. So this dryer. If you look at it for the week, I've used 16.98 kilowatts on the dryer. My wife did laundry on Monday, on Tuesday, and on Saturday. For the month, we can look and see how much for the month we've used from the battery 58.66 kilowatts of energy. So that has a huge impact on saving on the electric bill. So going back in here, I think the last thing I'd like to highlight here is the settings. So you always want to make sure that your firmware is up to date. So this firmware is the 6.0. I have no issues in here. Other things you can do in the smart home panel include the setup for the split phase. Right now I'm going to remove this. By removing this and saving it, Because my EcoFlow smart home panel is set up for 240, there's a green knob in the device that you take out. Once you remove that, you're gonna start having errors on your product. So just give it a second. And you can see right now, it's not even allowing me go because my entire panels were still on when I turned that 240 volt off. So right now it's saying system disconnected. So I'm gonna take a walk into the garage and you might hear an echo. But by doing this, I'm coming into the garage to look at my smart home panel. And while looking at this, one of the things I did was I had to turn off the backup system. By doing that, and turning on both batteries, as you can hear the beep, I should see an error pop up in here because right now this system is currently set up. It's currently set up for a 240 volt system. So right now it's saying single phase mode error. Please check the mode you've set. If it's split phase, please complete the split phase setting. If it's a single phase, please make sure to switch the connector. The switch connector is plugged in. So what that means is that right now, if you look at this, number 1 and 2, which is my 240 volt dryer system, has been separated. So in order to get rid of that error, we have to make sure that this setting right here on the split phase is set up as number 1 and number 2. Now that error should disappear. And you hear a beep. That's my EcoFlow removing the error. And we should give it a second. Try to refresh it. And that error is now gone. Next thing we need to look at with the smart home panel is charging. So in terms of charging, you can have the option to quickly recharge your Delta Pro directly through the smart home panel. All you have to do is click on the particular Delta Pro you want, and you click that button right there for recharge. You give it a second, you should hear it click. Give it a second. And now it's charging. It's gonna be slow because it has a slow startup, but you should slowly start seeing that number go up. And if you can hear the sound of the Delta Pro is kicking in because now it's pumping 800, 1400, and it usually stops somewhere around 1600. Now, what's important to know is that you can customize how quickly you want your Delta Pro to charge. One of the benefits of charging your Delta Pro, let me turn this off for a second. You should hear another bit. There we go. Again, there's a slight delay in the app, but I can assure you the charging is stopped, and give it a second, and there we go. Charging is stopped. The other thing about the Delta Flow in terms of charging is when you go into the Delta Pro itself, so you click on Delta Pro 1, under the setting, you can click how fast you want your Delta Pro to charge. So here we can see AC charge speed. If you click on that, interesting. Okay, so I'm not able to make that update here until there's a button behind the Delta Pro that you have to toggle to slow. And by toggling that button to slow charge, it allows me now change, I want to charge at, 200 watts. And if you do that, your Delta Pro will take a very long time to charge. Right now mine is set at 1800, and I'm just going to toggle that button back now because I usually charge at 1800 fast speed all the time. So by toggling that button behind the Delta Pro, that 1800 watt option to change is now gone. And that same thing applies for the Delta Pro 2, or my second Delta Pro here, same thing, 1800 fast charge. Now, what makes the smart home panel charging even better is when you're doing automation. So let's go back into the smart home panel itself. If you go under here and we want to set an automation, we're going to click and we're going to put a start date for today, an end date for 2 years from now. The daily frequency, you can, again, we said we can pick daily, weekly. Right now, we're just going to leave it at daily. And what we want to do, you select switch to battery backup or switch to recharge. Now, by doing this, you can pick one Delta Pro, and you can pick the charging speed all the way to 3,400 watts. So we're going to do that right now. So if we look, the only other thing it's asking for is the time. When do I want it to happen? So we're at 4 a.m. right now. So you have the option of picking a time before. So I can say start at 4 o'clock and finish at 5. In that way, since the time is 4:33, if I click save right now, it's going to understand that it only has 27 more minutes of charge left. So let's do that. You're going to hear it click shortly. Once I save this and I go back and I turn it on. There we go. And now the new automation we just saved, which is recharge, is right there. And you're going to hear a really loud sound. Again, I'm in the garage next to my Delta Pro. And this is going to charge at a rate of 3,400. Now there's always usually a loss. So you're going to hear, let me walk away from the Delta Pro for a second. So what you're going to see now is the Delta Pro 1 is charging at, usually gets around 3,200. So this is the Delta Pro 1 charging at 3,200, and you can monitor all this straight from the smart home panel, as we can see right here. Delta Pro 2, on the other hand, is not charging at all. Now, a beauty of this is Delta Pro 2, while it's not on this automation, I can charge it right here from the app. So let's do that. But that's going to charge at that 1,200, 1,600, most likely the 1,600 rate, because this one is not on the smart home panel automation. Let's give it a second again. There's that few seconds delay. But you can see that there's the lightning bolt there showing now that Delta Pro 2 is charging. So give it a second and we can see it's going to start rising. So the beauty of the smart home panel is that Delta Pro 1, which does not have a smart home battery, is charging at 3,166 watts. That means that battery is going to be fully charged in just under 1 hour, if not less than. Looking at Delta Pro 2, this is charging at 1,500 watts. Because Delta Pro 2 is down to only 12% and it has a smart battery, it's saying charge time is going to be about 4 hours. Let's exit the smart home panel and look at the Delta Pro 2 itself directly. So what do we see here in Delta Pro 2? We can see we're getting 1,500 watts coming in, and half of that, just about half of it, 690, is going out. Where's the out going? So it's going right here into the extra battery. So the extra battery down there is getting 690 watts going into the extra battery, which is 11%, while the main Delta Pro 2 is at 13%. So this is regular charging. Going back to the smart home panel, let's click on this, and this was the Delta Pro 2. Let's turn this off, and let's let Delta Pro 1 charge a little bit directly from the smart home panel, and this is charging at 3,100 watts. Now, this is where it gets a little bit crazier. If we go back into our automation, you can see the recharge of the battery. So while the battery is still charging, Delta Pro 1 is charging at 3,000 kilowatts. We can make edits to our automation and say, hey, I also want Delta Pro 2, which has a smart battery, to charge at 3,400 watts. So let's save this. And now, you heard the click in the garage. I apologize for the sound quality. But next thing you're going to see, if you look at the top left, where you can see from the grid was pulling 3,000 or 3.2, 3.3 kilowatts before. But now, it's going to go up to 6 or 5, it's almost 6.5. because now both Delta Pros are going to be charging at 3,100 watts. So let's look at Delta Pro 1. It's charging at 3,180 watts, and Delta Pro 2 is charging just about the same thing. So now the Delta Pro 2, which previously said it was going to recharge in 4 hours, that time's been cut in half. So it's going to be charged fully in 2 hours. Delta Pro 1 is going to be charged in 58 minutes. And this is incredible. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to turn off the automation because I do have solar panels. I think on my Delta Pro 1 it has just about 1.2, it's a 1.2 kilowatt solar system that is charging that. And on Delta Pro 2 I believe it's 1.4 kilowatt system. So I don't really need to recharge it from the grid because I know in Florida 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, the sun's out. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, the batteries are fully charged. So let's turn this off. Am I turning that off? I'm walking back to the garage. You're gonna hear that loud sound. It's not really loud because in the garage, the sound is going down, and in a few seconds, the sound is gonna be gone. Why? It's because the fans were cooling the system because we're charging it so fast. All right, going back in here. Now we have the system. If you look at both percentages at the bottom, the lightning bolts indicating charging is now gone. Let's switch the system back to the battery setup. You heard that click? That's the smart home panel switching everything from the grid. It takes a second, like I said, from the grid back to the smart home panel. And there we go. So one more question that I think people might want to know. And the first question is basically about recharging the EcoFlow batteries through the smart home panel. And what I mean by that is people want to know is, can you charge those batteries and discharge at the same time? The answer is no. If you are charging the batteries directly through the smart home panel, directly or through automation, that takes precedence and the discharge shuts off. So those 10 circuits shut off. You can, however, recharge the batteries using solar, but not through the smart home panel. So one of the things you can or should do, in my opinion, is if you want to go fully automation and you don't have enough solar panels to recharge in the morning, you set a time block and also a break in between. So like for this experiment, I'm going to show you right now, I set the batteries, the time right now is 5:37 a.m. I set the batteries to back up the system to provide electricity from 5 o'clock to 5:40. And that's a.m. And then they pick back up at 6 o'clock and they run all the way to 11 at night. In between that 5:40 and 6, I have the second automation, which is the recharge automation here. And this is showing that the batteries are going to start charging. Actually, let me set them at 5:40, the exact same time that the other ones are going off. And I'm just going to do 5:40 to 6. And let's get rid of the 5:51. So what that means is that this system right now is providing us electricity. The batteries are providing us electricity from 5 a.m. in the morning to 5:40. Once 5:40 reaches, the battery backup system shuts down and the recharge kicks in. It recharges the batteries from 5:40 all the way to 6, just only 20 minutes. And then that battery recharge system shuts off and then the automation kicks back on. Why would you do this? Again, if you find yourself that you need to supply yourself just some X amount of electricity prior to the sun coming out and you don't want your batteries to die, you can do that. So let's save this. So let's look at the system in real time. So let's let this run for a minute. I don't know if you could hear the clicks all the way in the garage, but now the recharge should be kicking in. So let's see. You see all these are off. They're no longer green. And the recharge, slow, but you can see the lightning bolts, meaning it's slowly kicking in. And that's how you do the automation. Why do you do it this way? Because this, if this overlaps completely, so if the recharge goes, if the backup automation itself goes from 5 a.m. all the way to 11 at night, and the recharge, the automation recharge, which is this, overlaps and there's no break in between, the recharge overpowers it, the backup, and shuts down all 10 circuits. And that can be a pain because if one of the 10 circuits supplies the internet that you, or your router that you use for your Wi-Fi, well, it's going to shut that down too. So you can't reconnect easily to the smart home panel. It becomes a pain. That's happened to me a couple times. In those situations, I had to connect my router directly to my EcoFlow river. And once the internet came back on, it was easier for me to control it. You just don't want that stress. So this is how you set the automation backup and automation recharge to work in a synchronous relationship type way. All right, guys. So that brings this smart home panel from EcoFlow review to an end. Please like and subscribe. I'm new to Facebook, new to Instagram, new to YouTube, new to all of it. So I would appreciate the likes and subscribe. And if you have any questions on anything you want to see, anything you want to know about the EcoFlow products, feel free to leave a comment and I will do my best to respond. Thank you very much. Goodbye.